Hey, welcome to Head First Fishing. Appreciate you coming by the channel today. Hey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You'll be following all the really cool fishing videos that we got coming down the line. Everything from action fishing to tutorials to special guests. Like we got today, Captain Dylan Hubbard of Hubbard's Marina in Madeira Beach, Florida. These guys have been at it for a long time.
But a quick recap. Again, mangrove snapper fishing, double snout, imperative. High gear ratio reel, really important. Making sure you're hooking your double snell to present your bait naturally, and then being able to have the right size wire hook and the thin barb to be able to set that hook home more quickly in that mangrove snapper's mouth. But after mangrove snapper comes my second favorite, which is hogfish.
Ooh, I love them.
Yeah, hogfish.
Right here. They go right here.
Yeah, I've eaten plenty of hogfish, as you can tell. But hogfish is, I think, everybody's favorite right now. And I think it has a lot to do with the regulations on the other species. And plus, you don't have to go that far to get a hogfish.
You don't. We catch them right there around Egmont Key. You catch them in the bay sometimes. They'll show up, you know, anywhere there's a rock pile, and they can eat some crabs, you know. They'll be showing up. Yeah,
and for hogfish, my go-to setup for a hog is definitely a more light setup. Typically I'm using around a 4000 series spinning reel. You could get away with the 3000 series, but that's getting pretty light. Right. These hogfish, they fight really hard.
They do.
One of my favorite go-tos is that 4000 series Stratic CI14. But nowadays they have these special reels like the Quantum Cabo with that dual drag. It has a 4000 series Cabo, has almost 40 pounds of drag, which is nuts.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
it's got, you know, mid-20s, that's a lot, but 40? Jeez.
Yeah, so that Cabo gives you a lot of drag capacity in a small combination, in a small package, to where you still have that sensitivity for that fish. Now, also with hogfish, lightest is best. So you have to get a certain drag capacity to where you're able to fight that fish, but you want to light reels to be able to feel that bite.
Sure.
And then on my rod choices, typically I'm using a medium, maybe medium heavy rod with a really light sensitive tip, so you can feel that fish looking at your bait.
Right.
And then as far as weight choice, light as possible again. Anywhere from your 1/4 ounce, I don't know if you can even see that.
We'll get a clip for it to watch.
Yeah. So the smaller leads are best. Typically the smallest possible. So if you're patient enough to drop down no weight, that's even better. But typically you have to use some type of weight to make sure that your bait's hitting the bottom where your chum is and where you want that bait to go.
Right.
Normally about 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce is my go-to starting size, and then if the current's running really strong, I can go a little heavier. But it's all about presenting that bait naturally. A hogfish is not a snapper. A lot of people call them hognose snapper, but they're not a snapper species. They're actually a wrasse. And hogfish are higher in that water column. They're not sitting on the bottom like the mangroves and the grouper. So they're up off the bottom. So typically your bite is going to be as that bait kind of flutters to bottom. So what I use again is the lightest possible weight, so that way that bait flutters to bottom more naturally. My favorite setup for a hogfish is either, I use 3 different ones. Knocker rig, a naked ball jig, or the jig head. A simple jig head with no weight added to it is a great setup because you can tip it with live shrimp.
Definitely.
And because your weight is right on your hook, you have a lot of sensitivity. If you've never targeted, yeah, and a lot of control too. If you've never targeted hogfish, I'd start with a jig head. Then you can work your way up to the more advanced naked ball jigs. These things work really well for hogfish. They're some of my favorite baits to use for hogfish, red grouper, for a lot of different species.
A lot of fish eat them, and you know, we had another segment, I think it was a month or 2 ago, Captain Scott was talking about using the naked ball jigs for all kinds of stuff.
I mean, they work for everything, but we could do a whole video with the species you can catch with naked ball jigs.
Sure.
But they do work very well for hogfish, especially when you tip them with a little bit of shrimp. I like pulling the head off a live shrimp and threading that tail on that bigger teaser hook of the naked ball jig, and that works really well. You can cast it away from the boat or up drift and work it back to the boat and just slowly bouncing it along the bottom just moving your wrist, not your forearm. And as it twitches along the bottom and bounces, that little puff of sand it creates is what that hogfish is cruising above the water or above the bottom looking for. Because hogfish are feeding on your crustaceans, your shrimp, your crabs, your sand fleas, whatever may be out there, that's what they're going to be targeting. And that puff of sand that's created by that naked ball jig is a great way to target those species.
So basically what you're saying is they're kind of hanging out higher in the water column than many other fish, but they're kind of looking down. They're kind of scoping out, seeing what's going on. A little bit of a down angle, maybe kind of like a helicopter hovering down, like that.
One of the things I learned at a young age that really helped me growing up in this fishery is learning more about biology of fish. And one of the things that they teach you very early is look at the mouth of that fish. Where the mouth of the fish is where he's going to be feeding. So a hogfish has a very pronounced mouth, as you know, but it's right along the bottom of the face. So that fish is going to feed on the bottom, but he's not hanging on the bottom. Right. And as you spear fishermen know, most of you are out there sitting at home saying, well, all the hogfish I shoot are on the bottom. Yeah, because you're swimming down and scaring them to the bottom. In a natural state, like if you dropped your GoPro down, you're going to see those hogfish hanging 3, 4, 5, 6 feet off the bottom, looking down, ready to ambush those prey. So as you're targeting them with hook and line, you have to take a little bit different approach. Whether that's bouncing a naked ball jig along the bottom or using a really light knocker rig to flutter to the bottom or a light jig head. Either technique works well, but as you're dropping it to bottom, it takes a lot of practice to kind of feed that line through your guides very naturally. Because any kind of sort of jump in that bait from trying to pull line out of your reel and that braid sticks is going to make that bait look unnatural. So I like to kind of hold my rod straight up and down and peel some line off and then watch that line go to bottom, and all of a sudden you'll see it rip, and that's the bite. And then you just reel down tight and set that hook and start cranking them up. But a hogfish has a lot of fight in it.
They do. Would you say they kind of fight sometimes similar to a triggerfish a little bit?
Very similar, but in my opinion, they almost fight a lot like a grouper for the first couple seconds.
Right.
People laugh when I say a hogfish will rock you up, but they will.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in rocks a lot of times, but they'll wrap you around the sea fan they're living next to, or they'll wrap you around other structure because they're quick to go back to bottom, especially in ledges and rock piles and other areas they're living.
Right.
But hogfish, a lot like mangroves, are very smart. They take a lot of technique to kind of get them excited, and they're very leader shy. So when you anchor up over an area for hogfish, you kind of have to fish down the other species. Now, on a party boat, when you're fishing with us on our half day or all day, we have the benefit of, hey, everybody drop down squid. You're all dropping down cubes of squid. You're catching those gray snapper, those porgies, those sea bass, and you're kind of clearing that area. And the more aggressive species are either being thrown in the fish box or you're fighting them to the surface and releasing them. And that hole in their mouth is going to stop them from feeding for a while.
Yeah.
Then once you notice you drop down in an area and everybody's catching fish. You're catching fish, and then all of a sudden that bite kind of plateaus on you. And the bite starts slowing down, but it's still steady. Then the bite starts to take a turn for the worse, and everybody's like, all right, Cap, it's time to move.
Yep.
That's the point when you want to start targeting hogfish. Once that bite slows down on the squid or the shrimp, then you know you're going to be able to get your bait to them hogfish. Now, if you're not fishing on a party boat and you don't have the benefit of 20, 30, 40 other anglers fishing with you, a great way to cheat is using some of the aquatic nutrition super shrimp or the snapper up or the yellowtail up. Any of this chum product allows you to get that bait to the bottom quickly and kind of saturates the area. Now, with a chum that disperses in the water, you don't want to kind of drop it on the surface because it'll spread out and the current will carry it away from the area you're fishing.
Right.
A lot of times what I'll do is I'll make chum bombs, whether that's putting chum in a paper bag, putting some egg sinkers in there on your line, dropping that to bottom and shaking your rod tip until that paper bag opens, or the eco-friendly way is by filling a solo cup up with some snapper up or yellowtail up, maybe some menhaden oil, and putting it in the freezer, letting it freeze with an egg sinker in the middle with a little loop of monofilament. And then on your way out, you can dump that in your bait well. By the time you get to your fishing spot, you can kind of crack that thing up and pull it just like your root beer popsicles you used to make as a kid.
Nice.
And then you've got a chum sickle, and you can drop that to bottom the same way you would drop the paper bag. Work that along the bottom a few times, and that chum sickle will break up and create a cloud of chum right where your other hooks are falling.
It is extremely effective too. It's extremely effective.
Or you can go with a product like this. This Super Shrimps product by Aquatic Nutrition is really cool. It's very fast dropping. So you can take a pellet of that and drop it, and it's going to drop just as quickly as your hogfish weights would drop, or your hogfish baits with light tackle. So this kind of product eliminates the need for creating that chum sickle or that chum bomb, and it really takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. That's why I really love that product, and it has worked really well for us on our party boats and on the private charters to kind of get the area fish down and feed those other species, because everything bites a shrimp. And if you go out there to target hogfish with a live shrimp, you're going to go through 20 dozen shrimp before you ever catch a hogfish, because you got to get those other more aggressive species fed quickly. And a chum like this is going to enable you to feed those other species and kind of get your shrimp to those fish you actually want to catch.
Yeah, sometimes I jokingly tell people I troll for marlin with shrimp. Just because everything eats a shrimp. I mean, I'm sure if one fell in front of a billfish's face, he'd probably slurp it down.
I've seen wahoo eat shrimp before, and you just never know out there. Now, that brings us to the next thing of what's going on right now, and that's our pelagic fishery. Right now in the spring and through the summer, we have plenty of kingfish around. We have a lot of cobia in the area right now, and the tuna are here. They're still really thick right now. Again, that mild winter, we didn't really have a big apex push of tuna like we normally do. They've kind of dribbled in and they've stayed here. So right now, just 2 or 3 days ago, we had a private charter, just a simple 5-hour charter, catch 3 really big tuna. And the way they did that was simply have that flat line out. If you're out there bottom fishing, drifting, anchored up, whatever you're doing, and you don't have a flat line out, you're having pelagic species swim by and laugh at you.
You're missing out. You're missing out big time.
You are. And those big fresh tuna, man, all you have to do is have that flat line out.
I love them.
Yeah, I like using 50-pound fluorocarbon. A lot of times I'll use, again, my 2-speed setup or a 4/0 setup, or you can use like a 5 or 6,000 series spinning reel. And I want to put a lot of braid on there so you have that line capacity. But then I put a shorter fluorocarbon top shot. Like if I'm fishing in deep water bottom fishing, I'm going to use 1/3 or 2/3 of my line in the water be monofilament or fluorocarbon. Whereas if I'm fishing for tuna on a flat line, I'm only going to have maybe 5 to 10 to 15 feet of fluorocarbon leader.
Just enough to hide that line that's coming into your connection.
Yep.
It makes it stealthy.
And then about a 5/0 circle hook. And the reason I'm using a circle hook is that tuna is going to come up and swallow that bait whole and start to run. So that circle hook will set that hook in the side of that fish very easily. Typically, my favorite tuna bait to flatline is a tail-hooked pinfish, because the weight of that hook is going to be pulling that bait down. So the hook's into the bait like this, and that pinfish is going to be weighted down. So if my wrist is the lip of that pinfish and that hook's in the back, that weight of the hook is pulling that pinfish down, and he's constantly trying to struggle to the surface. And that struggle to the surface is going to alert the predators, and it's going to keep them swimming to the surface instead of swimming down. A lot of times you'll have a mixed bag of pinfish and pigfish. If you use that pigfish, you'll notice they rocket to the bottom. They're very unique species, so I like that pinfish because he's kind of dumb.
Right.
He'll hang up in that water column for you, and it works really well.
Definitely. Something really cool about the blackfin tuna that we get, and that's kind of the particular tuna species that we have around here in the central west coast of Florida that come in within range with most boats. A cool fact about them is they seem to be mostly more mature fish. They seem to be about 20 pounds or better. Of course, you will catch some smaller ones, but usually when you see a report around here of people catching blackfin tuna, they're really nice fish.
Yeah, blackfin tuna, yellowfin tuna, bluefin tuna, they all spawn in the northern Gulf. So we have these big mature fish swimming up our coast to that northern Gulf. So we have the benefit of catching those big mature blackfin that are coming in from the Atlantic. Also, you do occasionally catch a yellowfin. Just a few weeks ago on the overnight trip, we caught a yellowfin tuna trolling a Rapala X-Rat Magnum. So those Rapala X-Wrap Magnums, they work well for kingfish, they work well for wahoo.
We got videos on them already.
Yeah, we've caught billfish with them, we've caught plenty of tuna with them, and I like trolling the Magnum 30s, especially when we're out there in that deep blue water. But you can get away with a 20 near shore, or even a 10 when you're fishing in Tampa Bay. And they come in a variety of colors, and they work really well for pretty much any pelagic species. I really enjoy using those lures. Now back to flatlining. We were talking about live pinfish for those tuna, also for kingfish. Kingfish are one of those things, everybody's got their favorite kingfish bait. Personally, on a charter boat or on a head boat, we're bottom fishing. Bottom fishing is our specialty, so we're not wasting time catching fresh live bait for our kingfish. Unless we're on a kingfish trip, then of course we would do that. But typically we're going to be grabbing one of those thread fins and simply using a real simple stinger rig with number 4 or number 3 wire leader and about a size 4 treble hook, and then typically rigging up that thread fin with a balloon, so that is going to go out your drift. If you're drifting one way, you're going to put it on the downtide side of the boat and let that balloon go away from the boat. And simply the up and down motion of the wave is going to be what makes that thread fin bounce on the bottom, or bounce wherever you set it. Typically about 5 to 10 feet down below the balloon, so it's just underneath the surface of the water. And the wave action is going to make that bait look alive, and it works very well for any size kingfish. We catch 40-50 pounders, and we've catch those 20-30 pound schoolies as well. Now, if you get lucky and you're bottom fishing and you reel up one of those blue runners, they work really well, obviously.
Especially for the big boys, those big kingfish.
And then you also, this time of year, we're coming into the wahoo season, where we have big wahoo around. And especially on a party boat where you have a lot of baits in the water, you have those big species coming in to investigate. Just last year, around this time, we caught an 88-pound wahoo on an all-day trip.
That's a big boy.
This guy was mangrove snapper fishing. He had 40-pound test on a big spinning reel, and the wahoo came up, and he quickly retied and flipped him out a little piece of sardine, and he slurped it up, and 88 pounds of wahoo came in the boat shortly thereafter. It was quite a dance on 40-pound tackle, but he made it happen.
I bet that was quite the run when it hit.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to not only have your flat line out, but you have to have that pitch rod ready. Whether it be that wahoo, that cobia, or that sailfish that comes tail walking into your spread, you always want to have that pitch rod ready. Typically, this time of year, I've got my little white bucktail with a long eel on it for the cobia, and then I've got my little 20-30 pound fluoro with about a size 2 or size 3 J hook, so I could hook on a shrimp for a triple tail, or put a little piece of sardine for a passing mahi. And then you always have your kingfish and wahoo set up with that wire stinger rig. Yeah. And if you have those pitch rods ready at your arm's length, it enables you to take advantage of those fish when they come up. This time of year, we are going to get into that week anytime now where we start seeing billfish caught. There was just one caught last week in about 70 foot of water, and who knows, there's probably plenty more to go.
They could show up anywhere. You know, some fish are known to be in some places, but hey, you know, there's nothing stopping them from swimming over here, you know. Yeah. It's wide open ocean. So, very cool, very cool. Hey, if you've ever seen someone that's a hardcore fisherman and you ask yourself, why the hell does he have 15 rods? Well, fishing rods and reels are like tools in a toolbox. And if you're going to take advantage of everything that's out there, you got to have something for different situations, and you got to have one ready at a moment's notice to do something completely different from what you were just doing over here. Yeah. So like Dylan just said, if I'm bottom fishing for grouper and snapper, I don't have time to change rigs if a cobia swims by. I need to have a rod right here ready with a leader and a circle hook for a live bait, or it's already set up with a jig or something like that, and I just need to pick it up and say, there he is, bang. You don't have time to cut line and put something else on. Yeah, you really don't, unless you have some chum ready or something to where you're able to keep that fish into the boat. But in most cases, it's going to be a quick pass, and if you don't have something ready, you just missed a bite. Exactly. But those are the kind of the species that are going really well right now. We're coming up into June. Once we hit June, we're going to have gag grouper opening and red snapper open. And that's going to be a whole different class of video with some bigger tackle. Definitely tune back in. But real quickly, to wrap up the video, I want to go over some tools of the trade. One of my favorite tools that I think everybody should have in your tackle box is a pair of D-hookers.
These dehookers work really well because they have that bevel. You have a lower bevel on one side and you have a smaller bevel on the other, and what that enables you to do is when you've got this in there, you can grab the back of the hook and it's going to turn that hook upside down. So let's pretend you're reaching into the back of that fish and you grab the back of the hook with that hook of the dehooker and you pull the trigger. You've turned your hook upside down, so that fish will fall right off. So it makes it really easy again to just grab the back of that hook, pull the trigger, and that fish will fall right off. If you don't have a pair of dehookers yet, I highly recommend you get them. The days of the old needle nose pliers are dead. Definitely want to get a pair of fish extractors. That's what these are called, or dehookers.
Apparently I'm living in the past.
I hate to break it to you, man.
I'm living in the past.
But fish extractors are definitely the way to go, especially on a boat like ours. When you're fishing on a party boat and you're catching 20, 30, 40 mangrove snapper every couple of minutes with 20, 30 people on the boat, you want to be able to dehook those fish quickly, and that's why we went to these fish extractors when they came out. There's a few different brands, Calcutta, Rapala. Everybody makes a copy of these things, but in my opinion, the stainless steel fish extractors work really well. They have a pair of them here at St. Pete Fishing Outfitters if you want to come pick them up. I like to put a little lanyard on mine because they don't float. And a lot of times they're dropped overboard quickly, and they're such a commodity, especially on our boats, they go missing very quickly. So tying them to your belt loop works well. Yep. And then also I have my little Boomerang Cutters, because not only do I have my dehookers that are going to enable me to dehook any fish I catch, but also I've got my cutters all in one, real slim package, and it makes it really easy to cut any line you need, dehook any fish, and it's all right there on your waist. So you're not wasting any time when you're catching a bunch of fish and you're excited. You don't have to get your hands dirty, because that dehooker, you don't even have to handle the fish. Especially if you catch something out of season. Just hold it over the side of the boat, let the dehooker let that fish right back into the water. As long as you don't have to vent it, you don't even have to handle the fish. So it's better for the fish, it's better for you, keeps your hands clean, and it enables you to have more fishing time where you're out in the water. So dehookers are definitely a go-to for me. My other tool that I never leave home without is a bottle of cleanse oil. This stuff works well on anything. I use it on the motors on the boat. I use it on my fishing rods in the guides. I use it on my hooks. I spray it in my tackle box, put it on my reels. If cleanse oil doesn't fix it, it's broke. That stuff really works well. And also never leave home without checking my FishBrain app and seeing what's being caught in the area. And it's a great way to kind of keep a log of what you're catching and when, because you can upload your catch and say when you caught it, where you caught it, and you can look back over time and see what time of year, what fish are biting. Especially as a more amateur angler that you're not spending a lot of time on the water, building an electronic logbook through a FishBrain app is really cool. Plus you can share your catches with your friends.
Definitely, it's like Facebook for fishing.
Yeah, some people call it the Instagram of fishing, because it's just fishing photos, and then it tells you what bait they were using, when they caught it. A lot of guys are putting what tide, and it's just a real invaluable way to get some information about a new area.
Very cool, very cool. Well, Dylan, you've given us a treasure trove of information here. This has been a very informative segment. I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you take some notes or put this video in your library and your favorites. Come back to it if you need it. A lot of really great information here. A lot of people go fishing offshore and they just kind of wing it and they have no idea what they're doing. That's too expensive.
It is.
Learn about the right approach, bring the right gear, learn about the fish species, their behaviors, biology, and you'll definitely raise your odds of bringing home a nice fish dinner with some desirable fish. So thank you very much for coming by, sir.
No,
we learned a lot today. Hey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You'll be following all our great content we have on this channel. Check out stpetefishingoutfitters.com, and also go to www.hff.fish if you want to go fishing with me, or you can go to
hubbardsmarina.com to learn more about Hubbard's Marina. You can always check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or the FishBrain app. Just simply search Hubbard's Marina. And never forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too busy.
Thanks.